right, everybody. We are going to get started. It's December 16th, 2021. This is the Diversion Board of Authority Board of Director meeting. And Don, could I get a roll call, please?
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mr. Peterson. Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn. Mr. Ebbinger.
Here.
Mr. Strand.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Shirley.
I'm here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Seljevold.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Moving on, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 18th, 2021?
So move.
Second. Okay, motion and a second. Any comment? And looks like I can do voice calls. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign, and the minutes have been approved. Moving on to the approval of the order of the agenda. I believe we do have one amendment to the agenda.
Just for you.
That? Under 5C, we would need to add, under C, the dissemination agent agreement, which is an attachment that each member should have a copy of. So adding that to the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved as amended.
Second.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Moving on to the consent agenda, we will have 2 roll call actions on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda A, B, C, and C1?
So move. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? None. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Ebbinger.
Aye.
Mr. Strand.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shirley.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Seljevold.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you. And then moving on to D, under the consent agenda, we have D 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do I have a motion to approve that agenda item?
Move to approve.
Second, Chuck.
What was that, Councilmember Hendrickson?
He seconded.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
Why did we separate these?
That's a really good question.
Oh, okay.
I separated them because on my copy, I have 2 action items listed and roll call,
Good answer.
because I just wanted to have you here longer, Mayor Mahoney.
Oh, okay. Well, very good.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor roll call vote, please.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Aye.
Mr. Ebbinger.
Aye.
Mr. Strand.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shirley.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Seljevold.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, and the consent agenda items pass. And moving on to our regular agenda, and I will turn the Executive Director report over to you, Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Today, I wanted to kind of take a different approach for the Executive Director update, and I just really wanted to talk about what happened this year, since it is the December meeting, and then look out into 22 for things that we have upcoming. So I just have a brief presentation here to overview some of the things. We've had a pretty amazing year, as the board knows. A lot of significant achievements for the overall program. And of course, the board knows we're sitting very well moving into 2022 with the P3 procured, a lot of construction starting next year. So I just wanted to kind of take a minute to realize all of the wonderful things that happened this year, and obviously recognize board members and staff members that were a part of that. So obviously, this was a big year for connections. We awarded the P3 contract to Red River Valley Alliance with commercial close in August and financial close in October. Obviously, the board's aware that this was a pretty significant event, the first of its kind in the United States for a water resource water control project. And so we continue to move forward with haste in coordination with Red River Valley Alliance as they start to ramp up with their employees and their presence and get integrated into the community, and start to move forward with operations with construction next year. As we recall, we hosted General Spellman. He was here this year to see the project. He was very pleased that things were on budget and on schedule, and he was pleased with the construction activities that were occurring on the core side. We also actively work to strengthen our relationship with the FM West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. And the intent of that really was we knew the Red River Valley Alliance was coming in, and there was going to be a lot of questions about materials, supplies, industry, workforce, really a lot of the issues that the chamber deals with. And so we wanted to be in lockstep with them as we start to work to help the Red River Valley Alliance integrate into the community. And if I know some of the board members did attend the Eggs and Issues on Wednesday, and the Red River Valley Alliance did a great presentation, just talking about who they were and introducing themselves to the community, and kind of their perspective for purchasing local equipment. I think that got a round of applause from everybody that attended that chamber meeting. So that was really great to see. We also developed a winning strategy with the North Dakota legislature this last year with the acquisition of $430 million for the program that fulfilled all the state funding. Just a wonderful achievement that gave us certainty in our financial plan and gave us certainty moving forward in signing the agreement with Red River Valley Alliance. And then, of course, this picture is a wonderful picture, I think. We engaged the North Dakota and Minnesota congressional leaders in D.C. as we continue to move forward with coordination with OMB, the Assistant Secretary of the Army, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers headquarters for our $180 million request. And maybe just take a special moment here to update the board as well. You're all aware that Chairwoman Carlson, Mr. Shockley, Mr. Nicholson, and I were in D.C. on Tuesday this week. We met with Acting Director Shalonda Young of OMB, as well as Senators Klobuchar and Hoeven. We had a 40-minute long meeting to discuss the project and make sure that we could answer any questions that OMB has as they're discussing and contemplating the Infrastructure and Jobs Bill, the recent legislation that passed. And so I'm happy to report to the board that the meeting went wonderfully. I don't know if Chairwoman Carlson would like to take a moment here to say a little something, but certainly can, Chairwoman. Don't want to put you on the spot, but.
Oops. No, I think you kind of summarized how phenomenal the meeting was. To have them spend 40 minutes with us when both of the senators' aides were trying to pull them out the door because they were getting late for a vote. Really demonstrates how important and vital this meeting was, but also how engaged they are in this project. So,
yeah, and I'll add to that, Chairwoman. There was a comment made by the director that she has a no surprise policy. So I think, if there are any concerns as they're reviewing all of the work plans and the allocation of the dollars, I think we'll hear about them, and I think we'll be able to react to that very quickly and clarify and answer any questions that come up. So we have done everything we possibly can to position the program the best we can for the receipt of that $180 million. And I'm very upbeat at the current situation. So of course, massive year for funding and for project savings as well. I mentioned before the $435 million from the North Dakota legislature, unprecedented for North Dakota, to bond and that magnitude, and really fulfilled the state's contribution for the program. There was also coordination with the P3 developer after the bid, prior to financial close, that resulted in over $50 million in long-term debt savings. I'd like to thank Mr. Shockley for all his work that he did, and on the financial side of things, that was just a wonderful development that was unexpected, but certainly appreciated. And then, of course, the close of the WIFIA loan occurred as well. So we achieved $569 million at 2.06% interest rate, and all of the flexibility that that loan program provides for us, ultimately saving hundreds of millions of dollars in long-term debt payment. We also had a great year for team building. We brought Miss Jody Smith on board as the lands director. We're very happy to have her on board. She's already definitely getting integrated into the program and providing a lot of positive change and value as we move forward with this still a significant portion of work that we need to do on the land side. We also transitioned in the middle, well, kind of the beginning of the year somewhat, from Mayor Judd to Mayor Carlson as chair. And we'd like to thank Mayor Carlson for all of her help this year. Really, it was a banner year, and we couldn't have done it without her leadership and foresight. So thank you, Chairwoman Carlson. Many construction accomplishments this year, really ramping up. We had the start of the I-29 grade raise project. I don't want to take a lot of Terry's thunder later because she will provide a more comprehensive update. Also kicked off the first Southern Embankment project, which both very significant starts for the program. A lot of work being done in the city of Fargo as well. So another 5.67 miles of flood walls and levees, really kind of getting to the tail end of the work in Fargo as far as the local protection. 2 new reconstructed lift stations and a few properties, at-risk properties were also acquired. So we're kind of ramping down some of that construction. We still have a few years left for various projects, but ultimately both Fargo and Moorhead are in much better positions today to fight a flood if we were to have one during construction. Major progress on the Southern Embankment as well. As you're all aware, the diversion and inlet and the wild rice structures are well under construction, as well as the initial excavation work at the Red River Control Structure. That and all of that fill material was used for the I-29 grade raise project. We also did a lot of ecological projects as well and mitigation projects, and these are a requirement to do in conjunction with the construction that we're doing on the control structures. So we planted over 6 acres of trees in the Oxbow area and restored over 10 acres of wetland. Those are all credited for mitigation. So just looking at a few things to come next year, we have a big year ahead of us. We have the start of construction on the diversion channel and associated infrastructure. We intend to continue to work with the Corps in watching the I-29 grade raise project come to completion, as well as additional mitigation projects that we'll see. Excuse me. Another 58 acres of trees planted as mitigation within the Oxbow area. Begin the Drain 27 wetland restoration project. Award the Red River Control Structure, and then we'll see the installation of the gates at the inlet and the wild rice structure. Those are currently being manufactured. We expect those to be delivered this spring and really start to see those projects come together and look more like finished control structures. Couple unique dates noted here that we received from the Red River Valley Alliance. We are expecting construction to begin in April of 2022. Some of the mobility and transportation projects will begin around the August time period. The drain inlets, and then we will see the start of construction on the first aqueduct towards the end of 2022, as well as the beginning of the channel construction towards the end of 2022. And just a note, the Red River Valley Alliance does intend, once they start construction on the channel, that is a 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year operation. They will not be stopping for winter. So once they start towards the end of 22, they will continue through until they're completed with all of the excavation work necessary. So a lot of activity will be happening throughout the year, once we hit that tail end of summer in 22. So ramping up and reaching out, we obviously have been involved in a lot of discussions within the local community on the economic impacts. The board did take action to move forward with NDSU a few months ago on an economic impact study. So that is currently underway. There's a lot of folks within the community that are excited to see the results of that economic impact study. We're also assisting the Red River Valley Alliance in looking at local higher education and apprenticeship trainee programs, which were a requirement within the contract documents. Hopefully, that will be a part of the overall workforce strategy. Also, redesigning the website, that should be moving forward here. I do intend to do a procurement process with a public procurement to bring on a firm to update our website and get that more in line with our legal requirements and clean up some of the links and information on there, as well as expand our public relations and media relations efforts to reach a broader audience concerning the project and the construction that's occurring. There's going to have to be a lot of coordination with the general public about road closures, those sorts of things, in conjunction with the Red River Valley Alliance. And so we'll need to ensure that we're meeting our obligations under our contract for that as well. So with that, I think that was a lot of the highlights, a lot of great news. I'm certainly open for any questions that the board has. It doesn't need to be related to this, but this is kind of the year-end update I wanted to give to the board. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paulson. And one of the things I forgot to mention earlier about our meeting earlier this week with OMB was that Director Young mentioned a couple of times that she is really interested in coming to visit this project. And so we are going to be extending a formal invite to her sometime in 2022, and hopefully she will take us up on our offer. And I did not invite her to a bar, invited her to our beautiful restaurant to visit the city of Moorhead. So just wanted to clarify that.
The beautiful restaurants out in the west of Moorhead.
There are some nice ones over in West Fargo. I would agree with that. Absolutely. So any questions or comments for Mr. Paulson? How about anybody on the phone? All right, hearing none, thank you. It's been an incredible year, and I just wanted to express my thankfulness and gratefulness for everybody who provided me with grace and patience while I acclimated to becoming the chair of this incredible project literally overnight. So it's been quite the journey. So, all right. Moving on to General Counsel update. Mr. Shockley, turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I think I have 3 items today, the first of which is an amendment to the resolution regarding contract review and approvals. In summary, this is an amendment, is a third amendment to the resolution, and it really sets forth the internal processes by which the Diversion Authority reviews contracts and approves them for internal approvals. Some of the changes, they're important changes. I wouldn't really say that they're, on the larger picture, they're not that significant, but they include cleanups just in general to the definitions, cleanups regarding how the electronic approvals for contracts occur. We've changed the name of the TAG review group to the Member Entity Technical Review Group. Still same people, still same function, just changing names. Clarified that for non-technical agreements, the co-deputy executive directors would review the agreements. So for example, like PR for good, if you had some type of professional services agreement, the reviews would go to that team rather than to the technical team. Not that the technical team couldn't provide comments, it just they would be the main reviewers. Process is pretty straightforward. I can certainly answer any questions. I was on the phone yesterday at the Finance Committee, so it was a little hard to explain what was going on, but happy to answer any questions. This has been reviewed by the Technical Advisors Group. Significant comment had been provided. They'd reviewed it, and we've had multiple discussions regarding the review process. It's also been vetted through the PMC so that we have coordination regarding how the electronic review process goes. So lots of eyes on it.
Any questions or comments? Mayor Mahoney?
Move to approve.
Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
Just a question to John.
Yes, Mayor Mahoney.
John, so this just came back now for amendments, basically to make the process smoother? Is that basically what you're doing, and can do it electronically?
Yeah, I think substantively that was the big change. The other, we took it as an opportunity just to, based upon our past experiences, we give it an opportunity to clean up the resolution with some of the changes that have occurred to reflect what's actually going on. And then the other substantive change was making sure the co-deputy executive directors had a review of the non-technical agreements.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Strand, and then Mayor Daughters.
Thank you, John. I'm just curious, in an overview perspective, when we're talking contracts and awarding contracts and RFPs, I'd like to assume, but I need to ask, do we have criteria spelled out that clarifies our expectations of track records and histories of workplace safety in who gets and qualifies to get contracts?
So that is we do not have specific guidelines as a diversion authority. However, in the P3 contract, safety is, given that's our largest construction contract, safety is a huge issue. And we actually require the developer to submit a safety plan that's approved by the authority prior to the commencement of construction work. And also as part of the RFQ process, we'd required, that was prior to the RFP, we required the teams to submit information regarding their safety records, and that was also an evaluation factor that was in the RFP process. With respect to the other construction contracts, for example, the work that's done in the city, we would defer to whatever the city does for their contracting if that's a safety requirement. What I can say from the diversion authority standpoint, and we had this at our teaming meeting with the P3 partner, is that safety is really our number one concern. We want to make sure that everybody goes home safe. If they come to the work site in the morning, we want them to go home at night safe.
And if I may, Madam Chair, just to clarify further, North Dakota doesn't have the best track record for workplace safety. And for several years ongoing, we're one of the first, second, or third worst in the country. So with deaths and injuries on the work site. So I just really have this as a clear expectation of our project, that we don't contribute to that perspective that says safety isn't a value here. So thank you for answering that. And my expectation is it is the highest value we can almost put forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Strand. Mayor Daughters?
Yes, Mr. Shockley also provided Mr. Steen and myself a red line copy of this, of what those changes were. I have one question, Mr. Shockley, and that is, when it talks about the member entity technical persons, they have 2 days to review this. And I think you answered the question when you said the technical team has reviewed that. Is that practical in 2 days?
Well, yeah, to answer the question, so we did spend some time on that specific timeline. That's 2 business days. And so, for example, if at 4 o'clock today the contract was sent out, you'd have until Tuesday morning basically to respond. And so we use business days specifically. If that doesn't work, we can always come back and amend it. But after a lot of discussion, it was felt that 2 business days are appropriate. And what I can say is that if it is a really complex subject, I can't imagine that we'd push something through if somebody was having a significant objection to a contract.
Thank you.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, could I get a roll call, please?
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Emminger?
Aye.
Mr. Strand?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Selgervold?
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, and the resolution passes. Moving on to 5B. Turning it back over to you, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you. Item 5B is relatively simple. As part of the financial plan, the Diversion Authority had intended through the Master Indenture of Trust to apply for and obtain SRF loans through North Dakota Public Finance Authority. SRF loans are commonly utilized for drinking water and clean water features of the project. They're a 2% loan and they go for approximately 30 years. The North Dakota entities are probably very familiar with these types of loans. On the Minnesota side, it's referred to as PFA. So it's a federally funded state program that the federal government had given the state money to loan out to political jurisdictions around the state. And so this is just an application authorizing that, or resolution authorizing the application to be submitted and signed by the authority. And that is part of our financial plan. And this is for lift stations that would be located within the city of Fargo.
Thank you. Mr. Shockley, any questions or comments, or do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger?
Aye.
Mr. Strand?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Seldsvold?
Aye.
Is everyone?
Thank you, and the resolution passes. And then on to 5C, which was added, which is a dissemination agent agreement with Colliers. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing this item to be added to the agenda. It's probably, as was pointed out yesterday at our Finance Committee, probably one of the lowest contract amounts that this board's been asked to review. As per the issuance, and Joel touched upon it briefly, as part of the developer's finance plan, we had issued private activity bonds. We're required under an agreement with the private activity bond holders to do a disclosure once a year through the EMA process, which is a municipal reporting service that's national. And it takes some time to post different documents, and it's really one of those items that it's time consuming. It's not particularly challenging to do the posting. You just got to make sure you're doing it, but it does take time to gather the documents. And if you miss posting things, then there's consequences. And so my recommendation is always just to retain a dissemination agent, and it's their job and they're liable for doing it. So if something doesn't get filed and the bondholders get upset and bring suit, then they're liable rather than the authority. And Colliers performs this service. It's $700 for 2022. It's based upon the number of obligations that you'd have to report upon. We're expecting that it would be $700 a year until 2024, 25, or 26, when we would issue some sales tax bonds at the end of the construction project. And it could jump up to a maximum of like $2,000 a year. But this year it's only $700.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shockley. Questions or comments?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Don, I'll let you decide if you would like to take Commissioner Sherling or Commissioner Ebinger on that one. It was a tie.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger?
Aye.
Mr. Strand?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Seldsvold?
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to number 6, and the USACE project update, and I'll turn over to you, Terry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. This is the core monthly update for December and the end of the year, another great year. I believe the drone footage will be shown after this monthly update, so we'll kind of go into construction, ongoing construction in a bit more detail. So the diversion inlet structure remains on schedule. It's about 79% complete. And the focus has been to complete the vertical concrete placements to prepare for arrival of those big gates, which looks like March of next year. Wild rice, that is also on schedule, remains on schedule and about 49% complete. Arrival of the gates is now anticipated more around the May timeframe of next year. Number 3, I-29 raise. With the bypass in place, the contractor is focused on removing the concrete lanes of the existing I-29 alignment. The borrowing at the Red River structure site was complete. And that was a huge accomplishment for that contractor to get that done. Number 4, reach SE1. Nothing much to report since the last time. The contractor's basically under winter shutdown. On schedule, about 72% complete, and all that's left for next year is a little bit of impervious fill, topsoil seed, and then putting the aggregate surfacing on the road portions of SE1. Number 5, Red River structure. We're in procurement phase for that. The RFP went out on 12 October. Proposals were due this week on Tuesday, 14 December. And the evaluations by that team are underway. Award of the contract is being planned for late March, and this is, of course, dependent on fiscal year 22 federal funding. On to number 6, reach SE1B. We're approaching the last phases of design for that short reach between SE1 and the DIS. The 95% will start in March. Number 7, talk about reach SE2A. As you know, this is a phase that we plan to award in fiscal year 22. We've got final plans and specs basically done and on the shelf, ready to go, awaiting funds. And SE2B, as reported last time, we've paused the design of that to resolve some kind of big design issues. The last 2, Drain 27, Drayton Dam, as Joel said, mitigation projects extremely important and required. These designs, as reported last time, are on the shelf and ready to put out for bids as soon as we know our FY22 funding levels. And then I'll talk through the drone footage, and it kind of lags from my end. And so if that happens, I'll just kind of talk through it. This is the wild rice, and you're looking north, and you can see they're forming up the center pier. So now you can see where the 2 gate bays are. That pier will be poured next year. It'll take a bunch of placements. That's a huge piece of concrete. Here you can see the true preload areas where the earthen dam and the concrete dam will meet. Concrete dam walls will be formed up and poured next year once the preloads have settled. Here's the Red River structure site, excavation complete, 265,000 yards gone, and in the bypass at I-29, and you can see that the soils or the slopes have been stabilized. The next item is going to be I-29. Actually, it's the diversion inlet structure, sorry. What you're seeing here is you can see the concrete pumper truck there, and they're placing a trunnion girder. And this is one of the anchor points for that first gate. There's 3 gates at the diversion inlet structure. There will be 6 of these trunnion points that anchor the gates. So they have to take a lot of load. And they're reinforcing pretty complex, a pretty important pour there. I-29, you can see the bypass lanes in place. So we're going south here. The contractor's been removing the existing lanes. Here's the concrete crushing plant. Here we're looking north. So you can see cars going on the bypass lanes. A lot of concrete to crush. They'll do this, I think they'll do this throughout the winter. And here we are kind of looking north towards County Road 16. Onto the southern embankment, we're flying from to the southwest along here. All of the impervious fills in place. Dam embankment, you can see some farm approaches and culverts have been placed as well. again, next year, topsoil seed and putting the aggregate surfacing on the road portions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any questions or comments? The video is really impressive when you actually see all the work that's been being accomplished. So, thank you. Moving on to public outreach update, I'll turn that over to you, Roger.
Hi, Chairwoman Carlson. We did not have an outreach meeting this month. However, I do know that our crisis outreach or crisis communication plan is almost finished, and that'll be an important document to rely on when we have issues that need communication. And that's really all I have at this point. So I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Roger. Any questions or comments for Mr. Olson? All right, we'll look forward to seeing that plan and hearing more about it next year, I guess, which would be next month. All right, moving on to number 8, land management update. I'll turn that over to Commissioner Shirley.
Thank you. We did not meet either this month. We did not have any actionable items for our committee, but needless to say, a lot of work is going on. And I believe Mr. Olson is online for any questions you might have, or if you want to give them an update, Roger, on what the joint board has been doing, and then if Commissioner Campbell would update us on Minnesota's activities.
Sure, Commissioner Shirley, this is Roger. Yes, we continue to get appraisals and continue to encourage counter offers, and we accepted a counter offer today, which was had been in the works for quite a while. So we just continue to work with the landowners and communicate with them through our land agents, and also the staging area and the valuations within that staging area from Crown Appraisals. We'll be working with that and the land agents. And then also coming up, we will be having some public meetings talking about the flowage easements and what that might mean, and taking questions from landowners, and hopefully having the information that they request. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Commissioner Campbell, do you have anything?
I believe Commissioner Strand had a question.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious. I'm getting this sense that farmland values are really escalating in value. And I'm curious our perspective on that topic with purchases we made and purchases going forward. I just kind of like a balcony view if I could.
Sure. Yes, we are seeing values creep up and at times leap up, and especially in that southern embankment area and the Drain 27 wetland project, that area. As you know, it's a potential development area, and those landowners are trying to capture some of that value along with our appraiser. And it's a dynamic market which is changing quite fast. Certainly does not mean that it would continue, but at this point it is dynamic. And through our appraisers, we're able to capture some of that value and compare it to other land sales. But it is a challenge to keep up with the valuations.
Thank you, Roger. Guess turning it over to you, Commissioner
Okay,
Campbell.
thank you. The Ward Clay County Joint Powers Authority did meet today, and we did have a first look at a draft Floyd Easement offer letter that we're looking at sending out. There's obviously more details involved with that, and I think the timing of that, the plan for that is sometime in January, I think is the intended time frame for that. In reviewing it, we had some suggestions to the draft, and Mary, I think I also suggested that you being really involved with these and wanting to know those things, that draft should go before you as well, the Land Committee. So hopefully you'll be seeing that shortly, and we're looking for any additional revisions to that. We did approve a couple of appraisals today, and also approved a couple of different moving cost reimbursements for completed properties. So that concludes my report.
The only other thing I would add is that that we are going to be starting negotiations with Floyd Easements. And so there will be some information forthcoming to board members to help us all understand how complicated that is and how we got to the numbers we've gotten to.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherling. Before I turn over to the finance update to Mayor Dardis, just wanted to let everyone know I do have another meeting, and I'm going to turn over the meeting to Commissioner Campbell once I leave. But I will turn it over to you, Mayor Dardis, to give a report on the finance update.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Finance Committee did meet yesterday. All the items under the consent agenda were brought forth to the Finance Committee, as well as the items number 5, A, B, and C. They were all discussed and vetted, along with, under other business, item number 10, the 2022 cash budget was also. So we had a good meeting. Our net position as of yesterday was $98,984,816. Bills submitted thus far in December for work is $10,584,745. With that, I entertain any questions.
Any questions?
I have one more comment that I would like to make. Through the efforts of Chairman Carlson, Mr. Paulson, Mr. Shockley, Mr. Barthol, Joel and Chris, everybody, we are continuing to try and come up with dashboards or reports with regard to finance as to how we move forward in 2022 to make everyone aware that, without a lot of study and going through pages and pages of documentation, where we're at and how we're moving, because we're going to start spending a lot of money in 2022. Not that we haven't been, but we are going to continue with that. And so that will just have you with some working documents that it won't have to be such a deep dive. And again, I'm very grateful for all of the people that I just mentioned for their assistance in getting us to that point. Been extremely helpful. And I'd be neglected if I didn't mention Commissioner Steen has been an integral part of that too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to other business, 2022 cash budget. Joel.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. So today I have before you the final 2022 cash budget. This has been presented to, at the Finance Committee meeting on a number of occasions in the last few months, as well as a draft to the board at the last meeting. I would like to note we did not receive any comments from the last meeting. So there has not been any changes since the last time you have reviewed the budget. I would like to note that we have worked significantly with Finance Chair Dardis and Vice Chair Steen on going through these line item by line item. We really have put in a lot of work into this document. So today I am recommending approval of the budget. and I'm certainly stand for any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions? This is an action item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mayor Dardis,
Yes?
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Ebinger,
Aye.
Mr. Strand,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Selzvold.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Okay, that is good. The 2022 cash budget has been adopted.
Chair Campbell?
Yes.
Just point of order. This was considered in the Finance Committee yesterday. I'm a little confused why Mayor Dardis did not, recommend it in a sense, because it would seem like Land Chair or Finance Chair would logically have to make a recommendation to do this. So just curious, Joel, why that didn't just go in the Finance report and then recommended from the Finance Committee?
I suppose it could have, Mayor. We wanted to pull it out to kind of have be a standalone item in case there was any significant discussion versus just being an update, I suppose. But certainly, I apologize to Chairman Dardis if he would like to make some comments. You certainly can do that.
Well, just as a point of order, when we have our subcommittees, to me, it seems really good to have the knowledge that the Finance Committee did look at it and recommended it unanimously. Just, it seems the same as something come out of land management or outlook, that we've had that committee look at it. So do want to report that it did go through Finance Committee and we did recommend it.
That is correct.
Mayor Dardis.
Chairman Campbell, I would have been happy to do that, but it was listed later on in the agenda, so I took it for granted. They thought it was above my pay grade to do that, so I stayed out of it. If you note in my report, I did mention that the cash budget did come before. Again, I am so grateful for the efforts on behalf of the staff and Commissioner Steen, because my document is different than yours.
Yes.
Okay? I have 14 line items with regard to the cash budget, but there's comments here. And again, due to the amazing work of the questions that Commissioner Steen and I had, all of those have been addressed. There has been level 1 and level 2, and probably even some level 3s that we wanted an explanation of what those line items were. So this certainly has been vetted before the Finance Committee, and it was a unanimous approval by the Finance Committee.
All right, I want to thank you, Mayor Dardis, and for Mayor Mahoney and Mayor Dardis, I am just simply following the approved order of agenda.
I'm not arguing that, but I know that Dardis and Steen took some extra time to go through a lot of stuff, and I just think, well, the board members, just reassure you that it was thoroughly looked at.
Very good. All right, next item is the 2022 public meeting calendar. Joel.
Thank you, Chairman Campbell. So this is included in your packet. This is the contemplated meetings for 2022. Today, this is for your information. I'd like if any board members could provide any comment, if there's any changes or conflicts with your personal calendars, please let me know. This is an actionable item in January when we usually adopt the annual calendar. So we'll have about a month here to take comment. So really just for the board's information today.
All right, and lastly, Joel, we have program information points.
Yes, and these were handed out to the board members today. I pulled it up on the screen here. We intend to continue this practice. We did do this quite extensively in the past, through all the action this year. It kind of fell by the wayside, so we'd like to bring it back up. And what we intend to do here is provide the board with information points on all of the large topics relating to changes occurring at the Diversion Authority. And then about on a quarterly basis, we'll update these and provide these to the board. Really a means for receiving questions relating to any particular item. You'll have a go-to sheet that you can you go to see the status and also keep everybody informed. We will be having a lot of changes in 2022 happening very rapidly and very quickly. And so this may go to a monthly status update for the board members so that we can all stay apprised of all of the dynamic and changing environment that we fully anticipate and expect next year. So again, just for your information, no action items. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This brings us to
Just a question. I'm sorry, did you say this would be online or provided?
We would initially, our thoughts is we would provide this to the board on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Through in the board packets. If things are changing more quickly than we anticipated and we needed to do this on a monthly basis, it would just be a part of our regular board packet to be a high-level overview of all of the different pieces of the project.
And you'd probably do this, but it's really helpful if you redline it when you do update it, just
Great
makes life
comment.
easier.
Yes. Yeah. Then you can see before and after. Great
Right,
comment,
exactly.
Commissioner Shirley.
I guess this brings us to the end of our 2021 business of the Diversion Authority Board. With that, I guess I would wish all of you that have been working on this tirelessly and everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Happy New Year. With that, I would stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Mahoney seconded, I saw it. We're adjourned.